Launching a missile is like a first date. Sometimes it feels like you did everything right, but the result is disappointing. Is this really true? If someone tells you that missiles aren't worth your effort, don't believe them. Hello and welcome to my tutorial on ballistic missiles. Today, we'll be glorifying missiles, especially chemical and nuclear ones. I'll show you how to use splash damage effectively, how to trigger anti-air, what happens if you don't trigger it, and, of course, how to annoy your opponent on a professional level. For instantly wiping out multiple enemy targets, there's nothing more effective than missiles, even if the opponent has air defenses. I hope I've intrigued you enough. Stay until the end of this video, and I'll share knowledge that will help you destroy almost any target. If you're still here, let's begin. The following elements aren't mandatory, but in this video for maximum effect, I'm using one of the deadliest and most effective combinations in the game. A level 3 satellite capable of scouting ground targets. An elite bomber as a platform for launching missiles. And of course my favorite, max level ballistic missiles. You can manage without a satellite or elite bombers. But with them, it's much more fun. You can launch missiles almost point blank at a target whose composition you can see in real time. This is simply priceless. Let's analyze the second episode in more detail. You may have noticed that in both the first and second clips, I'm not attacking targets directly, but instead, using splash. For chemical and nuclear ballistic missiles, this splash radius is 35, while conventional missiles have only 15. This technique helps avoid destroying the population, and lowering your own morale. The first missile covers these three groups, while the second aims at the wing of enemy bombers and an anti-air. If you're curious about the fate of the remaining division, I finished it off with cruise missiles since my bomber was on cooldown. To dispel any doubts about population destruction, let's compare the city's information before and after the attack. I'll place the screenshot here in the top right corner so you can see it. The chemical missile attack happened, and all units were destroyed. And what about morale and population? As you can see, they remained unchanged. Thus, the main limitation when using missiles has been eliminated. By the way, not long ago, in another campaign as the Balkan Union on the Overkill map, I attacked this same city using splash damage but from another province. Sometimes you really need a long arm if you're too lazy to sail across the ocean to your enemy. You're probably wondering, how can I determine if the splash radius is enough to hit the target from a neighboring province? The short answer is, I can't. But you can use other units to visually estimate the distance. For example, mobile anti-air. I know its red circle radius is 26, or 50 if the unit is upgraded to level 4. Using visual comparisons you can roughly estimate whether the splash radius of 35 will reach the target. For example, in this case, I can definitely hit the target with my chemical ballistic missile from this province and neighboring city. You can also use the patrol radius of aircrafts for reference. We know it's 50. Based on this information, it's easy to estimate the boundaries of 35. With a bit of practice, you'll get the hang of it. But what should you do if the enemy has missile defense? Attacking directly without preparation isn't an option, because the missile will be intercepted. However, if the passive defense of the stack is lower than the missile's health, you can attack directly after triggering the anti-air system. For now, just take my word for it. Later, I'll show you how to do it, and what happens if you don't. I know, nothing inspires confidence quite like quoting yourself, so, before we move forward, let's watch a short clip from my North Korean solo campaign, where I explain how anti-air systems work. Pay attention to the passive and triggered modes. This knowledge is crucial for overcoming missile defense. Now let's take a closer look at the recent examples from this match and analyze the difference between AA defense modes. There are three of them: active, triggered, passive. The first is the active mode that is familiar to us. The air defense scans the area around it and attacks what it sees and can hit. The attacks happen every 10 minutes on a set schedule, at the same time. The second mode is triggered. It activates when any target or even a province within the AA range comes under enemy attack. It's important that an actual contact happens, Attacks by patrols are not counted here. In this case, after the contact, the air defense attacks all available targets, and a 10-minute timer starts. If there are any available targets when the timer runs out, the air defense attacks again. If not, it returns to the standard mode. Finally, the passive mode. The air defense is left alone with the missiles and uses its defensive stats. In this case, the defense stat is applied first, meaning the missile's health is reduced by the air defense's protection power. Then, with the remaining reduced stats, the missile attacks its target. That is why, it's important to leave the air defense exactly in the city or at the center of the province you want to protect. For example, if you wanted to attack a target in this province with missiles, you'd need to trigger both of my theater defense systems, and you can do whatever you want with it without any consequences until the cooldown ends. The quick AA tutorial is over, and now you're mentally prepared to continue. So, I want to destroy a wing of bombers that is returning to refuel. I calculated the timing, and launched a chemical ballistic missile for this purpose. However, if I attack St. Louis directly, my missile will be intercepted like a paper airplane. Therefore, before the main missile arrives, I sent another missile to trigger the anti-air. It will arrive slightly earlier and hit a neighboring province. As you can see, the AA system was triggered successfully, and I can now safely attack this juicy fruit. The key point is to ensure that during the anti-missile attack, your main missile is outside the anti-air system's attack range. It is enough to wait 5 minutes between missile launches. Boom! The bomber wing and nearby troops are destroyed. In some cases, AA systems can be neutralized in other ways. For instance, by forcing them to attack your aircrafts. In this example, the stack includes a theater defense system, whose attack power against aircrafts is about as threatening as a breeze. Therefore, I can sacrifice some health to achieve my goal. I fly toward the enemy because I expected the first missile's power wouldn't be enough, and a second one would be necessary. Now the enemy is completely destroyed. As alternatives, you can use any aircraft or missiles to trigger the anti-air system. Now let's discuss what happens if you don't trigger the enemy's anti-air system before attacking. Currently, I'm using a level 2 ICBM. The stats of the enemy's AA division are also displayed on the screen. As you can see, its health is significantly lower than the damage my missile can deal. Contact established. And what's the result? One enemy unit survived. Partially, this is due to level 3 bunkers that the enemy has in every city. Also, unlike ballistic missiles, ICBM lack the storm position ability. Let's take a look at the battle report log. Here, we can see the report of my attack and the enemy units I destroyed, including the theater defense system. There's also a notification showing that my missile was attacked. Using simple logical reasoning, we can conclude that in such battles, the AA system is triggered upon contact and deals damage to the incoming missile first. After all, a destroyed unit can't deal damage. This is precisely why it's crucial to disarm the enemy's missile defense system before attacking, for more successful results. If you have doubts about the usefulness of missiles or worry that by the time you upgrade them there will be no targets left, let me reassure you. Almost all footages in this video come from a single match I played on the World War III map, where I inflicted massive losses on my opponent primarily using missiles. Moreover, there were many more successful missile applications. But I must warn you, to continuously fire missiles, you'll need an economy of at least 40 or preferably 60,000. This is more feasible on overkill maps. While we watch another ballistic missile attack, let me explain why I call AA triggering combining with splash damage an S-rank technique. Splash damage ignores the defensive stats of the target. And if you first disarm the enemy's anti-air system, its offensive stats also won't apply upon ground contact. This makes the enemy completely defenseless. Thus, this method allows you to destroy any target, even a stack of 10 theater defense systems. This technique requires precise timing and practice, but I highly recommend mastering and using it. Let's dive into another example, but this time into an example of a direct missile attack on a TDS. I launched a conventional missile with 23 health to attack an enemy division with a defensive strength of 12, and my missile was destroyed. This happened because upon contact the AA system first attacks the target, and then applies its defensive stats. In this case, the enemy division's effective strength was 24. That's why my first missile was destroyed. However, my second missile successfully attacked the target, since it didn't have to deal with the offensive capabilities of the enemy division. The key difference between how I triggered anti-air by attacking a province earlier and how I did it at the moment is that this time my missile was destroyed, whereas previously it wasn't. In some scenarios, this can make a significant difference, for instance when you need to trigger multiple AA systems simultaneously. Discussing nuclear and chemical missiles, we cannot ignore NBC Protection. This ability can reduce damage taken by 50%, but this applies only to units with this feature. However, I wouldn't rely too much on it, since damage will still be inflicted. Typically, after a ballistic missile attack, only 1 to 2 units with NBC Protection survive. Thank you for watching this video until the end. I hope you found it helpful. I wish you Happy New Year. May this year bring you thrilling victories, effective use of splash techniques, and that ballistic missiles become the cherry on top of the cake that explodes in your enemy's capital. If you managed to put into practice splash in your games, come back to the comments section of this video and share your success stories. See you soon.